Thank you all for your patience. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're waiting on one more commissioner. Thank you.
For those of you on Zoom, we'll begin momentarily. Chair Cruz, would you like to begin?
Yes, let us begin. Good evening, everybody. It is 6:35 in the evening, and I call this regular Planning Commission meeting to order. Nicole, roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Crystal Malare,
Here.
Commissioner Andrew Goff,
Present.
Commissioner Eric Altman is absent, Vice Chair Devet Mohammed,
Present.
and Chair Brando Cruz.
Present. Thank you, Nicole. If everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our new Youth Planning Commissioner, Ramandeep. Ramandeep.
Hold on just
Thank you, everybody. And first on presentations, we have the introduction of our Youth Commissioner, Ramandeep Jawanda. A little bit about yourself, Rwanda.
Brent Cooper will be
Oh, there you go. There he
joining
is.
us via Zoom to do an introduction.
All yours, Director Cooper.
Hi, everyone. It's a little odd to be on Zoom. It's been a number of years, but we'll give it an old try. Anyway, wanted to welcome Ramandeep Jawanda for our new youth commissioner. We're really pleased to have her part of the group. Ramandeep is a senior at American Canyon High School, and she has a role of helping freshmen adapt to high school life. So it's she's already showing her leadership, and she also has leadership in 2 clubs at school as well. Ramandeep is passionate about contributing to the city's economy and helping with the residents and economic opportunity. So really happy to have Ramandeep join the Planning Commission, and I'm sure all of you are happy as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Cooper, and welcome again, Ramandeep. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Hi everyone, my name is Ramandeep Kaur Jwanda. I moved to American Kenya about 3 years ago, and I saw the ability that American Kenya could grow its population. I wanted to help out in the city government to improve their population as a growing community. And I wanted to join because I wanted to make sure everyone is safe in this community, and feel free to ask any questions about me or anyone, the plans that I have for this community. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. This time, I'm moving on to public comment. This time is reserved for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. It is recommended that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes each, and it is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items on the agenda should comment via email prior to the start of the meeting, or to verbally comment on the item during the meeting by clicking raise your hand button if joining by computer, press *9, or by joining by phone when the item is called. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the Planning Commission does not respond to public comment at this time. Speakers are asked to please speak clearly and provide their name. Any handouts for distribution to the Planning Commission should have been emailed by 3 p.m. today. At this time, I open public comment.
And we have Yvonne Bagansky. Yvonne.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Baginski. I'm a resident of Napa County, and I brought this really cool eagle that I got in Maine for my 8-month-old grandson. And I got him this eagle because by the time he gets to be my age, there won't be any eagles left. So I want him to remember what they look like, even though my son said it's probably going to scare him to death to have this in his room. But I thought this was so cool, I had him ship it out, and I wanted to show all of you. And the reason I'm coming before you right now is because I don't know if you're aware that there are about 30 people here who in Napa County who've been getting together to start organizing for a habitat conservation plan and a nature conservation plan for Napa County, which would include the city of American Canyon, as well as South Napa County and parts north. And the purpose behind a habitat conservation plan would be to prepare information before the property gets development. So we know what animals, what endangered species, what threatened species are already living there, and then we could work with the developer so that they would know that this is on this land, and then they would, there's an agency that would come out of this that would then help them build around this effort. So I'm stumbling, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I think that having a habitat conservation plan in Napa County would be a wonderful idea. There's one in Solano, there's one in Sonoma they're starting, and there's one in Yolo County. And basically what this will do is preserve some of these endangered species in this community. This is the most biologically diverse part of our county, and it's a part that we really need to work to save. I do know there is a bald eagle living currently in American Canyon. I understand it's only one. So let's hope and pray for a second one so there could be more. And I just wanted to give you that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Okay, next we have William Baker.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is William Baker. I live in the Montevino area of American Canyon. This Monday morning, I emailed each of you a report outlining my concerns regarding the ABC alcohol license application notice at the Chicken Guy restaurant at 200 Broadway. Did each of you receive this? Good. Firstly, I would like to understand if any commission meeting regarding the Chicken Guy use permit included a discussion about whether it would apply for an ABC on-site alcohol license. I find no reference in the early 2023 agenda packs regarding on-site alcohol sales being part of this project. If the Chicken Guy intended to serve beer and wine, it should have been disclosed to this Planning Commission in early 2023. I find no such reference. If not, this application for an ABC on-site alcohol license for a QSR is an unprecedented request. I respectfully ask the Commission to review and reconsider the use permit for this project. As noted in my reports, my concerns are twofold. First, this application is in conflict with California Business and Professional Code Section 23789, which requires on-site alcohol licenses to be at least 600 feet away from any sensitive use site. Second, I find no precedent for a QSR, that's quick serve restaurant, being located adjacent to a public park, and certainly no QSR stands next to a park permitted to sell on-site beer and wine anywhere in the United States. Additionally, Chicken Guy has only one outlet that serves beer. It is located in Caesar's Palace Food Court in Las Vegas, next to the slot machines. Chicken Guy should be expected to operate like all QSRs in American Canyon, Napa County, and the state of California. That is, without serving alcohol. This is especially important because it is next to the American Canyon's largest public park. The American Canyon Veterans Memorial Park should not be considered a site for an unprecedented social experiment to see if on-site alcohol consumption is appropriate adjacent to a public park. The current use approved by the Commission must
Please
be
begin to wrap up
reconsidered
your comments.
in light of this application to serve alcohol at this site. Not doing so would be a disservice to the public and the park it sits adjacent. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Is there anyone downstairs in the auxiliary room 104 that would like to make comment? It doesn't appear so. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make comment? Please raise your hand now. We have no additional public comment.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, stand by one.
Sorry about that. Beth Marcus. Again, Bill, no disrespect to you, but I commented on his posting this morning. I feel that because Walgreens serves alcohol and 7-Eleven serves alcohol and Perry's Market, and they're all around the same vicinity, I don't think that this should really be an issue, but that's just my opinion. So again, Bill, no disrespect. And number two, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but as you know, I live on Melvin and Poco Road, and there's been a lot of activity across the street on Poco where Dr. Singh was supposed to be building, and I was wondering if anybody could, because the neighbors are wondering what is going on with that property. Is there anybody that can answer that? Mr. Hugh?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Our records do not show any applications for that site yet. Mr. Singh has talked to staff maybe about a year ago about a project, but he never submitted an application, so we're waiting on him.
Okay, because like I said, there was a lot of people over here the other day with suits and coats and papers and everything, and I just wondered what was going on. Because I don't want, as you know, I live on Melvin Road, and what I consider the jailhouse down the street. We just don't want that to happen again, because that sort of got through before us even having any knowledge of it. So I just wanted to see if there was anything that you could tell me about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Are there any additional public comments from anyone in council chambers? This would be for non-agendized items only. Any comments from auxiliary room downstairs? Okay. We do have Karen on Zoom. Just one moment, Karen, and I will unmute you. Okay. Karen, I have unmuted you.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a question in regards to single-family housing. And when we purchased our home in the new neighborhood at that time in 2004, we bought it in an area that was single-family homes. And recently, the house next door sold. Well, actually, it was. It'll be 2 years ago in November, and it became a Airbnb in a sense, and then it's turned into renting each bedroom out individually for the 30-day period, I guess, that is required by law. But now I understand and have been witnessing that the garage is being converted into what looks to be a 2-bedroom unit. And it's my understanding that it has been permitted since there had been issues prior with construction going on at that place. So I guess my concern is people come into town, they purchase a home, thinking they're getting a single family home, gonna live here for, the sunset of their lives. And then all of a sudden they're next to an apartment building. I find that to be very disheartening and unfair to those of us that pay to live here at the exorbitant rates that are required to maintain our households. And it's very, very unsettling. And I just wanted to make that point and just get it out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for your comments.
Chair Cooper, or excuse me, Director Cooper, I noticed you had your hand raised and then you lowered it. Did you want to say something?
Oh, I did want to mention that there are state laws regarding accessory dwelling units, and that does allow homes in California, including garages, to be converted to housing units. Those laws are beyond what the city is able to control, and so the city doesn't have discretion over that. I can follow up with Ms. Fritz on maybe other issues going on in the House, but I'll do that separately.
Are there any additional public comments? There are no additional public comments at this time.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public comments. And Director Brent, while I still have you on Zoom, do we have any agenda changes?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Cruz. We have no other no agenda changes tonight.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the minutes of September 26. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion on the minutes of September 26. Planning Commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of our September 26, 2004 meeting.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari.
Aye.
Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Moving on to our first item of business. We have the General Technical Update Draft Environmental Impact Report, known as a DEIR, Public Review Workshop.
Well, thank you, Chair Cruz, members of the Planning Commission and the public. Brent Cooper here, Community Development Director. Pleased with this milestone to release the General Plan Environmental Impact Report. We have a presentation that summarizes the Environmental Impact Report from Gianna Menchie from Rincon. We're very pleased to have her here tonight. And this is part of the City Council's policy to have a workshop to introduce the environmental impact report during the 45-day review period. Following conclusion of that, we'll prepare responses to any of the comments that we receive, and we'll bring back the general plan and the environmental impact report to the Planning Commission for a recommendation on its way to the City Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gianna and look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Brent. Nicole, is this going to be pulled up on the? Oh, thank you.
Let's make sure that we raise this. And you want to use your own laptop? Correct?
No, you can have it on here. I'll have mine for something separate.
I'm here to help you. So do you have something you want to show on the presentation?
It's on the desktop for that.
Should have been emailed to Nicole.
It should be on the desktop there. Sorry.
Can you tell me which one it is, ma'am?
It's this one.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, do we need to turn, hold on just one sec.
And then to advance it, you can just move the arrows forward and backwards, okay? Have a great presentation.
Thank you. Alrighty, can everybody hear me okay? Hi, my name is Gianna Meske. I am here on behalf of Rincon Consultants. We've been hired by Minter Harnish to help prepare the draft EIR for the general plan update. So first off, I just kind of wanted to give a brief rundown of what I will be covering in today's slides and the subjects of this presentation. So here's a little agenda. And just a brief introduction. Brent, you've already met, I'm sure. He's the Community Development Director and the lead on the city side of the general plan update. On the consultant side, we have Minter Harnish, who's not here with us today, but they are supporting with the development of the general plan itself. And like I mentioned, Rincon Consultants was hired by Minter Harnish to support with the environmental review side of the general plan update. So, jumping into environmental review itself, specifically CEQA, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. CEQA is the law which applies to all projects in the state of California that require discretionary approval from state or local agencies. In the case of the general plan update, the city determined that a program environmental impact report, or EIR, as I will continue to refer to it, was necessary to fully evaluate, to fully evaluate the impacts of the project pursuant to CEQA. So one of the key pillars of CEQA is to disclose the impacts of the project to the public and to gather input through periods of public review. Further, CEQA seeks to minimize, reduce, or avoid environmental impacts of the worst case scenario through mitigation and regulation, which is what this draft EIR does. Lastly, environmental review also includes the creation and adoption of a mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, which lists out all the mitigation measures established through the EIR and includes a timeline of when mitigation should be implemented and implementing parties who are responsible for ensuring that everything is gone through. So I just wanted to provide a helpful flow chart, which includes the CEQA process. So the first step of CEQA is always to release an NOP, or a notice of preparation, which informs the public that a project will be undergoing environmental review. From there, a draft EIR is prepared and published for a 45-day review period, during which the city will solicit comments from public agencies and public members via written and verbal comments to give input on the draft EIR and its findings. So as you can see from this slide, this is where we are currently at in the general plan update. So as far as next steps, from there the city will take all the comments it's received, synthesize them into a final EIR which addresses all comments and incorporates any edits as necessary. The final steps would be to then take that final EIR to Planning Commission and City Council to allow them to make an informed decision about the project. So this is a slide that shows some pertinent CEQA milestones that this specific project has achieved so far. So on July 5th, 2022, an NOP was released by the city to solicit any initial comments from public agencies or members of the public, and that ran for a 30-day review period and ended on August 5th, 2022. During that time, on July 28th, a scoping meeting was held to present the project to the public. On September 28th, 2024, so just about a month ago, the city issued the draft EIR for public review, which opens the review period for public agencies and members of the public to read, review, and comment on the draft EIR. On November 12th, 2024, this comment period will close, and all comments will then be reviewed and incorporated into the final EIR. At this time, we're aiming to have the final EIR completed by early January. All right, so now into what the EIR includes. So as required by CEQA, the draft EIR covers a range of topics which are discussed in depth within the EIR. These include the following sections as shown on this slide. It covers a range of different resource areas, including aesthetics, air quality, greenhouse gases, noise, and wildfire, among others. The EIR is specifically structured with an introduction and a summary of the project and the purpose of the EIR. It also includes a detailed project description and setting section, which establishes the baseline for American Canyon and the project area. Within the environmental analysis, these topics are covered by resource area, and specific sections are structured as shown on the slide in the little blue square. Each topic area has an environmental setting portion. It discusses any potential impacts of the proposed project and includes mitigation measures as necessary to address any potential impacts that are identified. And as I touched on in the beginning, this EIR is specifically a program EIR. So that means it looks at a series of connected actions. In the case of this project, it would be specifically the implementation of a general plan through the year 2040. Instead of looking at a specific development or project, this EIR looks at how all of these actions are connected and would govern future activities and decisions for development within American Canyon. All right, moving into the findings of the EIR. The draft EIR determined that 8 resource areas would result in a less than significant impact on the environment without mitigation. These include the resource areas included on the slide: energy, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, population and housing, public services and recreation, and utilities. The draft EIR also determined that the project would result in no impacts to 2 specific resource areas. This would be agriculture and forestry and mineral resources. The draft EIR also determined that 28 mitigation measures would be required for the proposed project. These cover the resource areas included on the slide above: aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, paleontological resources, and wildfire. As shown on the slide, these mitigation measures have been tailored to address specific impacts of the proposed project. These range from reducing impacts to lighting and aesthetics, to impacts on special status species and biological resources, to establishing a climate action plan that would be citywide to meet the state 2030 and 2045 greenhouse gas reduction goals. The project also found that 2 significant and unavoidable impacts would occur as part of the project. The draft EIR determined that construction noise and vehicle miles traveled would both result in significant and unavoidable impacts. With regard to noise, the EIR determined that construction of development facilitated by the general plan would temporarily increase noise levels, potentially affecting nearby noise-sensitive land uses. Development facilitated by the project would also introduce new noise sources and contribute to increases in operational noise. The continued regulation of noise through the city's municipal code and implementation of proposed policies in the 2040 general plan would minimize impacts to adjacent land uses and accordingly, mitigation measures NOI 1 and NOI 2 were proposed. NOI 1 requires a project to conduct a construction noise analysis, and NOI 2 would require roadway vehicle noise reduction measures, such as rubberized asphalt or open-grade asphalt concrete overlays along impacted roadways. However, even with implementation of these mitigation measures, construction and operational roadway noise could still exceed standards, and this would be significant and unavoidable. With regard to VMT, the EIR determined that the citywide rate of residential VMT per capita under the proposed project would be higher than the significance threshold and would therefore conflict or be inconsistent with the CEQA guidelines. As discussed within the transportation section of the EIR, there are potentially self-mitigating measures included within the 2040 general plan, which would increase the use of multimodal transportation, which could potentially reduce VMT. However, these self-mitigating measures and policies outlined in the transportation section would not be sufficient. There is no known feasible mitigation beyond that which could be applied. Therefore, the project found that impacts to VMT would remain significant and unavoidable. All right, so the last thing that I want to cover, which is also the tail end of the EIR, is alternatives. As required by CEQA, the draft EIR discusses a reasonable range of project alternatives, which could attain the most basic of the project objectives, but would avoid or substantially lessen some of the significant impacts. Accordingly, the EIR included 3 alternatives and a no project alternative. These project alternatives also include the Watson Ranch Natural Alternative and the Limited Growth Alternative. So regarding the no project alternative, the CEQA guidelines require that the alternatives discussion include an analysis of the no project alternative. Pursuant to CEQA, the no project alternative refers to the analysis of existing conditions and what would be reasonably expected to occur in the foreseeable future should the project not be adopted. This is based on current plans and consistent with available infrastructure and community services. Accordingly, the no project alternative would not include the updated general plan policies. Alternative 2, the Watson Ranch Natural Alternative, would develops each of the Watson Ranch parcels to the maximum allowable density. This would add 596 dwelling units above the general plan's proposed build-out scenario. Alternative 2 would meet the objective of the proposed project as it would increase residential build-out while accommodating the same amount of non-residential build-out as a proposed project. As the EIR states, this was found to be the environmentally superior alternative. Alternative 3, as it's titled, would limit growth within American Canyon. It would limit future growth to approved and proposed projects, including the Watson Ranch Specific Plan and Broadway District Specific Plan, among others. This decreases the total units by 408 units and decreases non-residential density by approximately 65,000 square feet. In short, Alternative 3 would require the city to limit growth to those projects that have already been approved by the city or identified as planned projects. While Alternative 3 would meet the objective of updating the general plan so that it's consistent with state law, it would not meet the vision of American Canyon or project objectives to the same extent. Additionally, in an effort to identify alternatives that would reduce impacts, the city also considered additional alternatives that they ultimately rejected. This includes the no additional build alternative, which is essentially what it sounds like. This was rejected because it would be infeasible for the city to stop already approved projects, such as the Broadway Specific Plan and Watson Ranch Specific Plan. Furthermore, this alternative would not meet the project objectives and would not implement the vision for American Canyon. Simply put, if there were no growth, this alternative would not accommodate a residential population with a range of uses, create a center of employment and commerce, or capture visitors from the Napa Valley. For these reasons, the alternative was considered but ultimately rejected. All right, and to wrap it up, I just wanted to offer this slide, which includes two different pathways that you can provide comments on the draft EIR, which would then be incorporated within the final EIR. This includes a handy online portal that the city has set up, which you can access through the link shown on the slide, and is also found on the city's website. If you're a little more old school, you can also send physical mail, which can be addressed with attention to Nicole Jones, to the city's offices. But please note, pertinently, that all comments must be received no later than November 12th at 5 p.m. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Gianna. Appreciate that. Okay, at this time, I'd like to move questions to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission, what are your questions?
Just curious, how many comments have we received so far?
Director Cooper or Gianna?
You want me to cover that, Brent? I'm pretty sure we've received a total of 2 comments so far.
Wow, okay. My
2 to 3 is about right.
All right, so my follow-up question is, what else are we doing to do more outreach to our community rather than just posting it onto our site?
Well, we do have our email list that's sent out regularly to 4,800 subscribers in American Canyon. And that has given us pretty good coverage. This, of course, is an opportunity as well for people to be informed about the general plan EIR. And so that's another means. The Planning Commission has further suggestions. We're certainly happy to hear what they are. Once the EIR period closes, everyone who made comments will receive a written response. And then we'll have another hearing with the Planning Commission to consider a recommendation on the general plan of the EIR to the City Council.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Yeah, I think maybe just another push out to the community to get more comments and feedback.
I also want to add that when the project was released, the draft EIR, we did post in the newspaper on September 28th. So that was made available to the public as well, as long as, in addition to the State Clearinghouse website, which is available to anybody in the state.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So, hi, Devet Mohammed, Planning Commissioner. I have questions. So I was trying to read through everything, and it says that the American Canyon boundaries is 6.5 square miles, and it talked about city limits and the sphere of influence and the city urban limit lines, and then the general planning area, which the city of American Canyon provides fire, water, and sewer to those service areas. But I couldn't find anything in the documentation talking about the goals that we had in 30 years ago, and if they still make sense today. I think we need to revisit the goals and talk about, like, I didn't read anything specific about Napa Junction Road, the airport, the Newell Ranch extension. I did hear about it at the city council meeting on Tuesday, October 15th, when Jason Hawley, city manager Jason Hawley, explained about the, why it's taking so long. But there's also the Green Island and the Paoli Loop and incorporating land into city limits. Is that part of the general plan?
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a little hard to hear on this end. I think you were referring to a variety of policies that are in the general plan, and perhaps they may need to be updated in one manner or another. Is that correct?
Yes, Director Cooper. I didn't see anything specific to incorporating the land specific to the Newell Ranch extension, the Green Island, and the Paoli Loop, and then incorporating those lands into the city limits. And then, yeah, I mean, was there anything in there? Did I miss something?
A lot of that was discussed in the notice of preparation. This was a couple of years ago when the scope of the general plan update was set by the city council. The Paoli Watson area is contained in the general plan urban limit line, and we have an active effort to annex that property. The Hess Laird to the north is identified as a special study, and there was discussion about the I think the Green Island Vineyard, and the council concluded that the outcome of an initiative that was unsuccessful was reason to not include it as a potential extension to the urban limit line.
And then I also didn't see anything about transportation and safety concerns, talking about specifically about the Broadway District specific plan, and then also alternate routes, like the Newell extension. Is there anything like that in the general plan?
I'm sorry, the Broadway District specific plan, it is part of the general plan and adopted today. The general plan update doesn't contemplate changes to that.
Okay, he muted. And then also I wanted to make sure for open space and environmental stewardship that we're prioritizing open space and preserving areas. So I did read a little bit about that, but it wasn't very specific on that. I don't know who I'm supposed to look at.
Are you talking in regards to the content of the general plan?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we might need to talk offline. It's a little hard to hear, but I think I'll need to follow up with you after this meeting to hear your questions more specifically so I can respond to them appropriately.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have more questions, but I'll wait.
Commissioner Goff, do you have any questions? Youth Commissioner, any questions?
No.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up to public comment and questions.
Okay, we have David Gilbreth.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Excuse me, my name's David Gilbreth. I'm the co-manager of the LLC that owns the Green Island property. And the request that we are making is that it be included in your study area. A lot has changed in the last 2 years. As we indicated going back more than 2 years, we had the leading scientists say that we could not grow any grapes. That has never been refuted, and all of the vines died as predicted by the experts. So what we have is basically salty dirt clods out there with no flora fauna species that I'm aware of that would present a problem. And we can get into that when I have more time, but certainly this property should be in a planning area. It is an infill piece. Our northern boundary, just over Green Island Road, if you're familiar with the property, from there on is the city limit going all the way to the airport, which is about 1.5 miles, I estimate. On our eastern boundary, we have the city limits going all the way to the other side of 29. On the west side, we have the river. So we're a cookie cutter infill piece that is under contract with our wastewater to be a participant in, I'm not sure of the name, the Green Island lighting, landscaping, and street improvement district. So it just makes logical sense to be included. I would note that the Airport Land Use Commission, which is having hearings now to determine compatibility uses of this property, has a recommendation from staff to not only include a business park, warehousing types of businesses, but also workforce employment. And there are some perfect locations on the property to do that safely. They would be out of the hazard zone, and it would provide much needed housing. I have met people in your community, not not many that say this, but some are commuting from Vacaville or Fairfield to come here and work. There would be an opportunity here, and it's a rare opportunity to put that kind of housing in place. I would also note that since 2 years ago, the American Canyon Fire Protection District
Please wrap up.
went to LAFCO unanimously, and LAFCO unanimously approved annexing it into the Fire Protection District, which certainly sends an indication to everybody in this county that understands LAFCO law that they know that the county is not going to be developing anything there, but in fact the city of American Canyon would be. And the last comment is that the county of Napa has never served the property, can't serve the property. So I urge you to include it in your study area. We would certainly work with you regarding anything, and including comments from people that are concerned, of course, about environmental issues. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, David.
Okay. Next, we have Joan Bennett.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was a real strong proponent of Measure J, which took in that 157 acres out on Green Island Road. And the reason is that, you know, American Canyon does not have a whole lot of land to grow, but we can grow that way. I know you're looking at the Laird Hess, and I'm sure there's opportunities there in the future. But what we have in Green Island Road is, I would call, a diamond in the rough, because there is so much that can be done there. There can be housing, there can be, businesses, all kinds of things that can be done there. And I just would not like to see us not study that area, because I think it has the most potential for American Canyon than anything I can see right now. So I'm urging you to study that area and see how it can best serve the American Canyon city, because we need to grow. There's no place to go, but there is. We can go there. I know it's a process. I know, you just don't do it. You got to go through all kinds of loops and hoops and whatever, but it's worth it. It's really well worth it. And I hope that you will decide to include that as part of the study area. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Next, we have Terrence McGrath.
Good evening, Commissioners. Terrence McGrath, developer of Watson Ranch. I did have a quick question about what natural is. I've never seen that term used in a DEIR, but I'm assuming that's the existing plan. Brent?
Yeah, I know that we have discussed it. The natural alternative for Watson Ranch looks at the vacant properties, all of which has zoning, and the zoning has a maximum density limit. And so the natural alternative would assume that each of the vacant parcels is built to its maximum zoning potential. And as Gianna mentioned, that would increase the overall city build-out total by 500 or so units.
Thank you. So I haven't yet had a chance to read the DEIR. I will. But I do agree and want to reiterate Commissioner Mohammed's comment about Newell Drive. I will provide a written comment to the DEIR, and I disagree with Joan Bennett about there's a need to grow. I think growth should fundamentally take into account, obviously, infrastructure. And again, not commenting on Green Island Road plus or minus, or the Laird Hess property, but as the city council knows, the staff knows, I believe that Newell Drive is a very, very, very important part to the existing growth of the city, and obviously sets the stages for the future growth of the city. And just to remind everybody, the urban limit line, I believe, does not expire until 2030. So any lands that are outside of the urban limit line, that voter initiative has to be overturned by a subsequent voter initiative, which is a whole nother issue. But again, I believe the current state of the city, looking at traffic sitting out there on 29 right now, that Newell Drive is a very, very important part, and the city has a responsibility for at least 2 of those segments. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the auxiliary room 104 that would like to make public comment on this item? There appears to be no public comment from room 104. We do have Jim Wilson on Zoom. Jim, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Planning Commissioners. I'm Jim Wilson, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Napa Climate Now, our county's 350 Bay Area affiliate. We're commenting today to weigh in on this important general plan discussion, namely whether American Canyon should retain its 2030 net zero focus as a firm goal and policy directive. On behalf of residents throughout Napa County, we urge you to stand strong in support of the 2030 goal, along with each of the other jurisdictions in Napa County, the school district, Napa RCD, and surrounding communities. American Canyon has been a leader in the county, inspiring other jurisdictions with its climate positive initiatives. These initiatives are serving the vital interests of American Canyon residents and are important building blocks toward climate resilience. 2 years ago, the city of Napa adopted its new general plan that establishes goals and policies consistent with its Climate Emergency Resolution's 2030 net zero goal, and places at the top of its climate change and sustainability element policy CCS 1-1, which seeks to achieve net zero climate pollutants from public and private operations within the city by 2030. Pulling back on a firm 2030 commitment could easily undermine bold initiatives in the coming years and discourage countywide climate action committee efforts. As guardians of the public trust, the Planning Commission is in a unique position to weigh the benefits and costs of development from a holistic community perspective. Now more than ever, there's a need for this kind of leadership as climate change accelerates unabated. Napa RCD is committed to the 2030 net zero goal and stands ready to support cities in making the transition through innovative management. NVUSD is committed to 2030. State and federal resources, including millions in infrastructure and other climate funds made available through the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, are now available to help American Canyon meet its 2030 goal. Please support a firm 2030 net zero goal as policy in all planning and development going forward for our children's sake. Thank you.
Next, we have Kate Bitt. Kate?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Catherine Bitt. I'm a current junior at American Canyon High School and the co-vice president of Napa Schools for Climate Action, a student-led coalition and activist group that advocates for youth climate justice. I'm here tonight to comment on the global issue of climate change and the need for mandatory action to be taken in American Canyon. In the Climate Emergency Resolution, curated in 2022, American Canyon's commitment to achieving net zero climate pollution by or before 2030 was professed. It would be amazing to see American Canyon make this same level of commitment in its general plan. You, along with our schools and cities who have set the same goal, would send a message that we are in a true emergency and that you take your responsibility to our younger generation seriously. Being a part of the youth, I know that mine and my peers' futures are at jeopardy under our current climate crisis. There's no better time than now to make a big impact as a small community and guarantee a healthy future for our city's youth. It's the responsibility of our city's leadership and even just us as humans to restore a livable climate and environment by taking immediate emergency scale action. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, it appears we have no additional public comment.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public comment and move back on to the planning commissioners for their comments. I do have one. Just want to summarize this all. So, hearing Dave and understanding what the Green Island was all about, and of course, including that into our general plan. Hearing Terry and the importance of course, Newell Road. That's very important because, of course, we're growing and we need that road, definitely. Jim talking about net zero, and of course, Joan talking about further growth, and of course, Kate, youth, climate justice person. Thank you for all your comments. My question is this: can we include Green Island in the review and the update of the DEIR? And I will ask the question towards Attorney Ross.
I think the initial comment I'm going to make is the matter that was noticed for the workshop tonight was the environmental impact report for the general plan update. Actual content of the general plan was not a matter for the workshop. Nonetheless, several of the comments made relate to the existing environment. I think our office will review the comments made for both the extent of the EIR and the underlying project as it's currently defined, which is the general plan update. I think some concepts that will be involved in this review are the existing environment, and I'd just say preliminarily that the existing environment would include the development agreement associated with Watson Ranch, which contemplates city participation in the Newell extension. I listened carefully to what Mr. McGrath said. There are aspects of that development agreement that I think have to be integrated into the existing environment baseline in the environmental impact report. For the issue of planning areas, I think that's discretionary, and I think it's important to note on the record that the planning area designation doesn't commit to any specific action by staff or the Planning Commission or even the City Council as to time. I understand the issue advanced by Mr. Gilbreth with respect to the subsequent annexation of Green Island, the Green Island Vineyard property to the fire district, and the lack of prior services from the county. But again, I think that relates to the general plan content itself. The EIR's keyed on what that project definition is. Nonetheless, I'll examine that in the context that it's raised, because the effect is in this EIR workshop, the issues being raised by the public about should there be an additional planning area in the actual general plan itself. So I would distinguish between what's before the commission tonight and issues associated with the actual content of the proposed general plan. And again, I'll just say our office is going to comment on those, how they would relate. So I guess I'm going to turn it back to you. If there's any question about what we're going to do, please ask me.
Thank you, Attorney Ross. Any other questions from the planning commissioners regarding that statement? No?
Chair Cruz, Director Cooper has his hand raised on Zoom.
Director Cooper.
Thank you. I think to add on to what the city attorney said, it's very common, given the length of time it takes to update the general plan and prepare the environmental impact report. The notice of preparation is a very important document because it sets the scope of what would become the project. And it's common for once that scope is set for new ideas to come forward. But the scope of the project as approved by the council is what was analyzed in the general plan. I think fortunately for everybody, a general plan is a living document and it isn't intended to be static. So presumably once the general plan is adopted, there is always opportunities for amendments. And what's nice about the programmatic EIR, and this applies to the general plan and other circumstances where the city's adopted a program EIR, when subsequent projects and changes are proposed, then they're compared to the analysis in the program EIR. And it may very well be that it largely fits within the confines. So there's flexibility in looking at options and implementation in the general plan going forward. So I know I said a few things there, but the scope is set by the council, which is what the content in the EIR is. Following adoption, there's always opportunities to study new and better ideas.
Thank you, Director Cooper. So at this time, Commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments regarding Director Cooper's comments? No? Okay, so at this time, we will consider this public review of the workshop received and filed. Thank you. Okay, moving on to public hearings. We have the NVRG Vertical Metal Post Perimeter Fence Design Permit. Staff or applicant?
The staff recommendation on this is to continue this item to your next regular meeting in November.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Moving on.
Chair, the applicant would have a right to speak on the issue. I would note what's obvious from the agenda packet, that there is no staff report other than the recommendation for continuance to the next Planning Commission meeting. But certainly the applicant has a right to address that issue.
Absolutely. I'll open up to Terry if you have any comments regarding that.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Planning Commission. Terrence McGrath. I'm here as owner-developer of Napa Valley Ruins and Gardens. Regrettably, I'm standing up here tonight because city staff and our team the reason this issue is continued is because we're diametrically opposed to what staff is subjectively and unilaterally proposing relative to the fence and a setback. And just to give you some context of this fence, the fence around the ruins is approximately 1 mile. The fence around the hotel is approximately 1 mile. So this is not a situation where, for instance, you move that chair 6 inches. This is a situation where you move that chair 2 feet, and the metal fence posts around the ruins, there's 9,000 of them, just to put this in context. So we've had a forum for the last 3 years, city staff and our team. We meet 11 a.m., Zoom call on Thursdays with the entire city staff team. Sometimes it includes City Manager Jason Hawley, City Attorney Bill Ross, Public Works Director Erica, Planning Director Brent Cooper, et cetera, fire, police. And for whatever reason, staff decided, like I said, subjectively and unilaterally to apply a standard that doesn't exist in our specific plan. And there is no precedent for it. So Unfortunately, I would like to be here tonight listening to staff make this presentation on our fence. And the fence is really important. I mean, we plan on hosting 25 to 50 shows next year. That's just music. We just hosted a private concert recently with Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters. About 400 people attended it, and it was fully intended to show the world kind of what we're going to do. We spent a lot of money on 8 different artists, 4 of them cleaning up some existing pieces, 4 of them painting some new pieces. So the longer that fence is delayed, the more the project is delayed. And as you know, winter is coming, no pun intended. So I'm incredibly disappointed that this issue was not handled the way we've collaboratively and cooperatively handled issues over the last 3 years within our regularly scheduled weekly meetings. That said, I also had Mr. Heidorf here, who works with me, and I work with him, and his young daughter is sitting there paying attention and learning. I told her she's going to speak next. And we mocked up a fence. And that's something that, frankly, I've never had to do before. But staff wanted it, we did it. So I was sitting there thinking about where do we go next. And I don't want to put an issue in front of you in 2 weeks where staff and I are diametrically opposed to what we believe should be done. So what I would ask is, and I know this is a huge burden on you, is meet me sometime in the next 2 weeks and let me show you the issues from our perspective. And nothing that we're proposing has not been contemplated in the last 5 years in every single vesting document so this is this is our original specific plan, our amended specific plan, our large lot final map, the roadway dedications, the public infrastructure that we've built that includes sidewalks, Vine Trail, Ridge to River, et cetera, that has been built and accepted by the city. So, you know, the proverbial cows have left the barn. A lot of cows have left the barn over the last 5 years. So I don't want to impugn on you, but I think if you meet me on site, I can show you these issues. It'll take about a half an hour, and I'm happy to accommodate you 7 days a week, you know, Monday through Sunday. And let me show you what's going on here. And so hopefully in 2 weeks we can have this issue resolved. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Terry. Perhaps we'll gather up a field trip and you can provide lunch or. Thank you. Any other comments on that? Or we just move it? Okay.
The issue before the commission tonight is continuance. That's the staff recommendation.
Understood. All right, moving on.
Now, let's have formal action on it.
Oh.
I would request formal action that the matter be continued. That's the staff recommendation. I would request adoption by the commission.
Chair, I move that we continue this item to the next regular scheduled planning commission meeting on November 21st, 2024.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari.
Aye.
Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, commissioners. Moving on to the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Lot 7 Design Permit and Tentative Subdivision Map. Staff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we Hello. Okay. Good evening, Chair Cruz, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the public. My name is William He with the Planning Division. Very happy to be here today to present the Watson Ranch Lot 7 subdivision map and design permit. So this is the next exciting subdivision that's come up for the Watson Ranch specific plan. I have a vicinity map here shown. Lot 7 is kind of like L-shaped lot that is directly north of Lemos Point. The site's about 12.8 acres, and it will be accessed by Marcus Road and the future extension of Marcus Road northward. The site plan is shown here with north pointing to my left here. The project is to develop 136 single-family homes. Let me progress to the project description. So the site is in the medium density residential 16 zone. Access is from Marcus Road. The 136 single-family homes are all 2 stories, but there's going to be 2 types of homes. There's going to be 66 alleyway homes, which I will give more information in subsequent slides, and then 70 of the traditional single-family homes. Included in the subdivision will be 4 streets, 2 private alleys, and 7 private drives. There's approximately 6 floor plans for the homes, 3 for the alleyway, and 3 for the traditional homes. The architecture styles includes craftsman, prairie, farmhouse, ranch, and traditional styles. The builder will provide front yard landscaping with 1 shade tree per lot, and the trees will be crepe myrtle, 2 types of crepe myrtle. One is Natchez, one is Zuni, and one is the purple leaf plum. So we have some site photos for you. This is the site facing south, and directly to the south would be the Lemos Point Apartments, and then facing north is a vacant field, but to the right side in that north photo is the existing homes from Harvest subdivision that's facing Marcus Road. And then facing east is the homes that are at Marcus Road, and then facing west is the railroad line, as you can see from the photo there. We do have an aerial photo of the site, so as you can see, it's quite a large site. On the southwest side of it is a large detention basin that serves multiple sites for Watson Ranch. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about alleyway homes. This is one of the first of its kind for American Canyon. These homes have their main entry in the front and the garages in the rear. The garages face each other when there's 2 of these types, and they form an alley. These are lots 1 through 66 in the site plan, but lot sizes still are pretty big. They're 2,000 to 3,100 square feet, and then the site plans, the floor plans, are from 1,412 square feet to about 1,716 square feet. All homes are 2 stories, and they have a 2-story, 2-car garage, and they have 3 to 4 bedrooms. So I want to talk a bit about the architecture of the site. We'll start with the traditional homes, and we'll come back to the alleyway homes. Traditional homes, there's 3 types: traditional, ranch, and farmhouse. I guess we learned something from the Oat Hill major mod recently, where the farmhouse has the vertical slants and the ranch houses have the horizontal. That's how I'm beginning to remember them. So they have 3 types here, similar to Harvest and Artisan. Here is an example of the farmhouse architecture. There will be some homes that are facing the public right-of-ways and also the corner lots. They'll have a little bit of enhancement to them with their decorative siding. So for this one, this is the regular of the architecture, and then this is the enhanced. So there will be a bit more siding for those houses that are placed on the besides the right-of-ways. Here is a diagram of their typical site plan, about 77 foot length and 38 foot width. We will go back to that because this is one of the specific issues that we want to touch on. Here's a typical floor plan for the traditional homes. A 2-car garage on the first floor, a family room, and then the 3 to 4 bedrooms upstairs. All right, and we go back to the alleyway homes. So these are the ones that, with the front doors in the front, the garages in the back, and they're a little bit thinner. And this is an example of the Craftsman type. And this is the regular. And then this is the enhanced. And then this is the typical site plan for the alleyway homes. As you can see, the garages are in the rear, and there is at, I think it's a 5-foot setback for the garage setback to the property line. And here is the typical floor plan for the alleyway home. So that's the architecture of the site. Do have some of the site-specific issues. Sorry, that's an incorrect slide, but the issues are correct. So the first issue that we want to talk about is the applicant has requested a minor exceptions to their lots. This is included in their design permit application. It will go as a minor Watson Ranch specific plan amendment. First thing that they're requesting is a reduction of the garage setback from 20 feet to 18.5 feet. These are for the traditional homes. Typically, the houses in the medium density residential 16 lot has a requirement for 20 feet, but the resident is requesting an exception of 1.5 feet, which is less than 10%. The reason for this is that, according to the applicant, the old school garages used to have the lift gate, which requires an extra 2 feet, but now that these are all rolled down garages, these new houses can live without them. The typical parking space, surface parking space, according to our municipal code, is 9 by 18. So this meets the parking space requirement, and this really helps them out in developing their lots for this subdivision. The second request is to increase the floor area ratio for alleyway homes from 70% to 77%, so 0.7 to 0.77. So we're talking a little bit of about 10%. This allows them to build their homes a little bit bulkier than the code requires, and this is because of how the alleyway homes are designed. Without it, they will probably have to build a smaller unit or less units. So the applicant is here. They can give some more information on this. As for how the amendment works, the minor amendment is processed concurrently with the design permit, and the findings are already in the resolution. The second special issue with this site is the off-street bicycle trail. So this is the top-down bicycle lane map in the Watson Ranch specific plan. If we look at this bottom area, this is where Lot 7 is, And when we were looking at the Watson Ranch design specific plan bike trails, the original design was to have the bike trail going north to south right along the railroads. So with this new design, the applicant is requesting to shift the bike trail a bit. This is eastward, and this is mostly because this area here is really tough grading. It's about 3 to 1, and they're also going to provide a wider trail right along the basin here, about 20 foot wide. And so this is one of the requests, is to modify the the off-street bike trail. I have a close-up of this configuration. So along this blue line, going along the west side of the basin and west along the railroads is the original configuration, and the applicant is requesting that it's shifted eastward. So the bike lane will still be there. It's just a little bit different from what the specific plan has intended. Next, I want to talk about the enhanced elevations. So this is a map of the sites in the Lot 7 subdivision, and the sites marked in yellow are the houses that will have the enhanced elevations with the additional decorative siding, and some houses might have some stone wainscot on the bottom. Landscaping, the site will be fully landscaped with street trees, as well as the individual lots will each have at least 1 tree per lot, and I think some of the corner lots will have 2 to start with. However, after the owners buy it, it's up to them if they want to keep the tree or not. Next, I have modified conditions of approval. I have sent the Planning Commission email about a request from the Public Works team to modify some of the conditions of approval. This is because it's kind of like magic words. The original that was published on Friday was missing some of the magic words that that was necessary, because this site is in the AC1 section of Watson Ranch. There's the AC1 section and the Newell section, and the Public Works team needs to revise some of that language for some of the conditions to meet the development agreement consistency. So staff has revised those to work. It was changes on conditions 11, 20, 21, 22, and 30. Secondly, there is a condition from Public Works that has to be deleted because it was meant to request the applicant to reduce, to bring that 18-foot garage setback back to 20, but that's going to be considered in the minor Watson Ranch specific plan amendment, so it's unnecessary. And so if we delete it, it's more consistent with the staff report. And then next we have some modifications to ensure that easement dedications for the public right-of-way, and conditions 35 and 36 are added as standard conditions for construction work hours and the will serve requirement. Because of these changes, some of the numbering has been changed and some typos were corrected. So I'm not sure if you're comfortable with this summary, or do you want me to go through each of those changes? It's up to you. So I do want to say that the applicant has received those red lines and they are agreeable with them because it helps them with consistency. So you can come back to that if you decide to. Next thing I have is public outreach. But before I talk about public outreach, the applicant has a request for a second look at their mitigation measures. So with every project that's in the Watson Ranch specific plan, there are a set of mitigation measures that are already identified in the Watson Ranch EIR. We provided a list of them in the conditions of approval and just kind of looked at what are applicable to this project. The applicant requests that we take a second look and a closer look after this meeting, but prior to the city council, because some of those might have, they might have already been met. Some of the mitigations have been met. So it's up to the Planning Commission to, if you would allow staff to take a second look at those with the applicant. And so that's up to you, and I will make that recommendation towards the end of this presentation. So public outreach, it was, we started in July. This project was noticed to the neighbors in July 14th, 15th. Letters and neighbors to all the owners and residents within 500 feet. Then we had a second public notice on October, and then was out to the newspaper on October 12th. Altogether, we had 2 comments which staff responded to in the staff report. And that's about it. This project is consistent with the Watson Ranch Specific Plan Final EIR, and it includes the MMRP, as I mentioned earlier. And the design, Lot 7, complies with the permitted use and the final design guidelines of the WRSP. Staff's recommendation is to approve the recommendation for City Council for approval of Lot 7 with modifications as recommended by staff, or modifications to the conditions of approval as recommended by staff. And also staff recommends the approval of the design permit. So lots of material. The applicant is here. Let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, William, for that. Terry, would you like to weigh in on Lot 7?
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Terrence McGrath, developer of Watson Ranch. Just a couple things, and I'll introduce you to KB Homes, who is the developer and buyer of Parcel 7. So just to set the context of where we are today on Parcel 7. So the first set of pictures in the slide presentation showing the grass and everything, I have no idea where those came from. But just to give you some idea, the site was raised approximately 15 feet, maybe even more, maybe 18 feet. So that was 11,000 approximately dump truck loads of excess fill from Oat Hill that they brought over. So the site is fully rough graded today. The site had 2 existing wells on it. We're keeping one of the existing wells. We closed out the second well. We're keeping that well to provide water, so the stubs and everything for the utilities are in to the existing markets for the quarry lake. So we'll use that well. So if you drove out there and saw the site, it's a fully graded site. And then there's a big orange and white pipe sticking out of the ground. That's coming from the old existing well. So the reason when William was talking about the trail being moved, when they drew those plans 20 years ago, they didn't take into consideration that, you know, these sites would have to be raised and things like that. So the elevation between the edge, the western edge of the site and the railroad tracks today is probably 12 feet different than what it was at original grade. So it didn't make any sense to put the trail down there. And so that's why it's been moved. The other issue that William raised about the FAR, so FAR is floor area ratio. It really, I've never seen it applied to residential. It usually is applied in the commercial and industrial world. So you know, like for instance, an industrial property would have a 0.5 FAR. So, you know, if the site was 40,000 feet, you could build a 20,000 foot building on it. You know, an office building site would have a 20 FAR, where if the site was 1 acre, you could build 20 stories of an acre each on a site like that. I have no idea. It was an oversight in both the original Watson Ranch specific plan and in the currently amended specific plan. And so that's why the necessity for the minor amendment. And then as far as the master conditions of approval are concerned, as William said, we've got a red line. We're going to take another pass through those things to make sure, because there's a lot of things that have already been satisfied, because these are the master conditions for the whole entire project that falls under AC1, that fall under our development agreement. And the same thing with the mitigation measures. For instance, when we rough graded the site, brought in all those dump truck loads, we had to do all our biological surveys, plant surveys, species surveys, et cetera. I mean, we obviously couldn't put graders out there before we had done that. So a lot of the mitigation measures have already been satisfied, but we're going to go through that too. So we completely agree with staff on this issue. So with that said, I'd like to introduce KB Holmes.
Thank you, Terry, Planning Commissioner. Oh, sorry, this one. My name's Kyle Siegel. I'm the VP of Land Acquisition for KB Homes. You know, we've been working on this project for quite a while. It's something we're very excited to be a part of. I've been working directly with Terry and the engineers and all of city staff to make sure we're designing something that, you know, both fits the site and fits the public and, you know, is a benefit to the city of American Canyon. So a little bit about KB. We're based out of LA, California. We've had a large local presence. We've got, you know, about 12 active projects here in Northern California. Our office is located nearby in Fairfield, so most of our staff and myself included are in the Solano County or surrounding areas. You know, we are designing this site, and we took a lot of consideration to design specifically the architecture itself, the orientation of the homes, trying to max the density while maintaining, you know, a good quality of life for the residents. So the floor plans, you know, represent that, you know, in terms of the styles we've designed, you know, a wine country flavor, kind of reinforcing the character. If you notice from some of his presentation, there's some bold colors there too. So trying to, you know, meet the standard that American Canyon and specifically Watson Ranch require when we're designing this site. You know, as I talked about a little bit on floor area ratio, and Terry mentioned it, it's worth noting too, the city of American Canyon, as part of the general plan, does not have an FAR requirement for single-family homes. So we're consistent with that. As you mentioned, it's something specific for the specific plan that, you know, is taken into account. So we had a slight increase. The 0.7, we're maybe 0.72 over, but we're already starting what will be the smallest homes and most affordable homes, presumably within the specific plan. Our floor plans start at about 1,400 square feet. You know, so, but we're designing the lots to hit the density level and provide the affordable opportunities. So, you know, we can't go any smaller. Obviously, we'd have almost nothing left to work with in terms of a home size. So that's the only reason we're slightly over. We're also over on, I think, you know, 10 lots. So it's a very small amount, 0.72 to 0.77, you know, across the site. You know, traditional there too, but it's been designed, and we've tried to reduce all those impacts to meet it and meet the affordable price points, you know, especially given the current housing market, interest rates and things like that in this area. So that's it in a nutshell. You know, we tried to also with the landscape plan design the streetscape and, you know, trail as well. I think, you know, they touched on, as Terry did, the grading, the transitions. It doesn't make sense that I think the trail was previously realigned to Marcus Road. You know, the other part of it is, you know, obviously putting a trail next to a train track creates some complications as well. So I think we tried to reorient it, you know, and that, as William mentioned, there's now a 20-foot kind of area walkway we're put in there. We've also worked with city staff to provide some additional buffer areas and I don't want to say signing and striping, but something similar to kind of denote things. And we've also provided additional buffers kind of within the trail itself to try and make sure we're maintaining that appropriately. So I think that's about it. We touched on the garage setbacks, but I think that's all pretty standard. We're still meeting all the requirements. We've also designed where there are garages to not have them sit over a public sidewalk to create a situation where a car might block someone's walking. So it's all been carefully kind of planned out with our engineer, CBG, and KB staff and the architecture as well. So anyways, it's something we're very excited about. We hope you'll approve it and hear if any questions are asked.
Great. Thank you, Kyle, Terry, and William for that presentation. This time I open it up to the planning commissioners with their questions. Planning commissioners.
Sorry. My question is, do you think housing spacing is a problem for the lot? And how many houses are you like going to consume in the lot?
The subdivision will be 136 single-family homes within the 12.8 acre site. House spacing is kind of designed through the medium-density residential 16 zone, and they have met the setback requirements already for that. So it's at a minimum 3 feet for that site, but I think most of them have 4 to 5 feet or more.
And I would also include low-income people that are trying to look for a house. Do you have any suggestions for that?
That's a great question. This site is in the Watson Ranch specific plan under the AC1 section, and they've met their affordable housing requirement through the Lemos Point Apartments. So they've developed 186 units there off-site, but it's all affordable. So south of that site.
All right. Thank you.
I guess these are probably more for the representative from KB Homes. First thing, alleyway housing. This will be the first time in the city. So it's something that we haven't experienced before. And I'm assuming you've done these before in other places. Is there any complications that generally spring up for communities around these alleyway housing that we're not familiar with, that maybe you've run into before? I'm thinking, of course, emergency services. I'm thinking sanitation, anything like that, because it's just universal alley. Everybody parks off the alley, no parking in the front.
Sure. I don't know if there's a site plan or I could go back to it. Let me just see if I can pull it up here.
You can use that one.
Yeah, that one will work.
Yeah. So I think. We can zoom in. Yeah. I'll do the best I can to point this out here. There's, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is parking along Marcus Road. We've also designed parking kind of throughout as appropriate within the subdivision. So we're keeping kind of one side of the street parking. So we're making sure we're meeting kind of the parking requirements, especially for the alley loads, which will front, kind of on the top off Marcus Road. So there is additional parking there. There's also the the future park across the street, which is so it also serve parking there. I think where we've, as you mentioned with services, where we found is on certain ones, it's more the livability between units sometimes, and where you're talking about storage or spacing and things like that, right? I think that where we found for our home buying public to be some concern. So there is a contemplated where the homes are designed, and you can't quite see it here, but there's effectively a an easement between each other. So each one has the private space all the way up to the neighbor's yard. So that provides additional context and space, so each person can have effectively a private yard. So it's something that, when you design the homes too, and you see one side of the elevation, there's a little bit less windows. It's because it's viewing in. So I think, that's kind of the experience we've had, but we've tried to account for that in our design of the site.
The other thing that jumped up to me into the design plans, specifically for the alleyway homes, is just in the design plans, the front porches that were on there, which are a small section of the front of the house and the other side. To me, it just seems like a full porch on those, especially those alley homes, would be more beneficial than the side porch. I'm a Midwestern guy, so I'm a porch guy, but that's just the nature of when I see that, I said, why not just do a full porch? Was that something that was considered or not?
I might defer to Jerry here, who helped with some of the design things. I think, when we look at it, we want to design at least kind of a usable porch that you can stand under, not just something visual. But I can't speak to specifics. I think we try to design to the style and make sure what we design was sufficient and usable. But we, could certainly take a look at expanding something at, certain elevations where appropriate.
And that again, that's just kind of me, front porches, especially in these houses, because these, as you mentioned, are going to be some of the smallest houses that have been built in American Canyon for 2 decades, probably at least.
Right.
And I just think, to me, these homes seems like they're going to be more of a tight-knit communal atmosphere just because of the way they're designed. So that kind of takes me back to that community aspect and that neighbor aspect of having a porch, having walkways, and all of that. I think that's could be very conducive in that part of the neighborhood. I want to jump to the bike lanes for just a second. I understand the reason for moving it 100%. When you're talking about the new lanes that will be going down, and again, I think it was the other map, but it does run down D Street, is that right? Or what's currently there at D Street? And you have that enhanced elevations there. Is that conducive with the bike lanes? Is that what that's related for or not?
I can let William speak, but I think, or Jerry too, but the elevations are partially to the bike lanes or partially to vehicle traffic. So anywhere, I think that there's an additional focus, we tried to make sure we enhanced further. And I think that was one of the previous comments with staff, which we beefed up the areas and locations where we were enhancing at kind of staff's request to make sure
the bike lane will be on street?
I think it's on street, right?
Yeah, part of the street. Hi, my name is Jerry Marcus. I'm with KB Home. The bike lane will come down for a portion. It'll come down and come across the EVA, which is a 20-foot wide road.
Yep.
And then it comes down on the street, on Street D, and then it'll go back up, so that'll be going east.
So on the street, that's primarily my concern right now. Is it I'm going to get my types of bike lanes messed up between Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, nothing. It's just, is it marked in any way, shape, or form? How's it identified on the streets? Is it a separate bike lane? All of that information.
There will be sharrows, and I think there's maybe William help out. I know there's sharrows, and it will be marked. Yes.
It will be marked.
Clean, yeah. And it's the natural path that someone would take on a bike. And we really took a look at it. They'll cut across the wide lane, and they'll kind of ride down the street and then cut back up. And it's really where you would go if you were riding a bike, or where kids would go.
In the
Correct.
neighborhood.
Inside the neighborhood. It'd be a full 20-foot wide.
The EVA is a full one. I'm just really,
Exactly.
The change is because it's taking it from the west side of pretty much the homes, and now you're dropping it in, especially on Street D that is listed here. Now all of a sudden there's a bike lane in there. And that, moves it from no traffic to possibly traffic, cars in and out. That was my concern for that bike lane, on how it's marked, what type of bike lane it's going to be.
It'll be clearly marked, and it's really all local traffic. It's not going to be through traffic. It'll be people going home there. And to answer your question on the enhanced elevations along that corridor, it's really, it's a requirement to have enhanced elevations on the public-facing sides. So we've really I think, really done a good job. You can see where the red lines are, where there's going to be the enhanced elevations. Anywhere where somebody might even be walking their dog and will be looking at the homes, there's going to be an enhanced elevation. Even if they're in the kind of tighter, more little corners of the neighborhood.
And I'm just going to ask for a real quick definition of what enhanced elevations mean.
It's a good question. Okay. And it's detailed in the book, but it's, per the specific plan guidelines, siding wraps around. It's different for every plan. It's very varied, but maybe additional shutters on the windows, in some instances actually additional windows, additional siding, or the board and bat. And it's really dependent on not only the plan, but the elevation on the plan.
Okay. And one final question for me, just because I noticed in almost all of our new developments, not just this one, single-family homes seem to have gone away. Is that something you guys looked at?
Where'd they go?
I don't know. I mean, not single, I mean single story.
Oh, single story.
Single story, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Single story homes seem to have gone away. You know, as I'm getting a little bit older and I walk up and down my stairs every day, I now feel my knees, and that was something that, what happened to single story homes? And
Oh, boy. You open Pandora's box. It's not an easy, Andrew, or Commissioner Goff, I love the concept, and I just remodeled one in St. Helena where I live. And the issue is the cost of infrastructure. So the dry and wet utilities, all the roadways, entitlements, the cost to actually, have the privilege of starting construction. When you add all those factors together, that site needs more density on that site, more square footage in order to support the underlying cost. I mean, that's the simple answer in California today. And then when you start adding, the impact fee loads, the affordable feeds loads, all those things that also, a lot of cities today, that's anywhere from 75 to 150,000 just for your cumulative impact fee. That doesn't count land, doesn't count the cost of entitlements, doesn't count construction. So by the very nature, that's almost impossible to build a 2,000 foot or a 1,500 foot, site, because again, you're putting it on a relatively big lot and not getting a second floor. I mean, but I wish the concept was available because I love the concept.
Thanks, Terry. We do build single-family home in some markets, and they are there. For this particular neighborhood, we think these are the best plans for this neighborhood. We think this is what the buyers would like. We're offering 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom houses with 2 car garages and some little bit of yard space. Some of these plans have an optional bedroom 4 on the ground floor, so it's really providing a good space for a family in a great, vibrant neighborhood.
And just one more thing to add on all this. Sorry, 3 people asking this question, but there's also a density requirement, right? So to get to the density levels that we need, like we could even get approved for the site, there's just physically, you're not able to necessarily put a single-story home on there. So certainly with other projects or other density levels, maybe elsewhere in the city, that would be appropriate. On this site specifically, that goes all the way up to 16 units to the acre. And our lots are, I think as they noted, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. It's just not practical here, but certainly, we do like building them in certain areas as well and appreciate them too. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
Sorry. I have another question. When you said low as possible, how low can you go with the price? Because not everybody could afford a house. And do you have a plan for that price range if it happens in case?
So just to touch on that, we're talking affordable homes. So as maybe it was noted in here, so Terry and AC1, let me see if I can find it. If there was a point to where Lomas Point's apartment. Yeah, there, okay.
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but if you're referring to the affordability of the house, it's driven by the market.
Yeah.
The project, Lemos Point, is 186 units of very low, moderate housing mandated by the state. So I believe the threshold levels are 30% of average median income for the county, 50%, 80%, and I think there may be a product that's 120. And those are studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and some 3s. So Lemos Point, I believe, is the largest affordable project built outside of Oakland and San Francisco in Northern California in history. And there's, as of today, all the units are occupied, and there's 550 people living there. So more people are living in the affordable project, I believe, than in all the other homes sold to date inside Watson Ranch.
Thank you.
I got one. Just looking at just overall location for Lot 7 and the proximity of Walmart in the area. What's the, just thinking for safety precautions and all, what does the perimeter look like, and is it gated or fencing, or how does that, paint a picture for me. It's, yeah.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back a bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so this is the vicinity map with Lot 7, and then there's a railroad.
Oh, parcel.
Yeah,
Got it.
there's a railroad on the west of it, and this map doesn't show it, but it's at least 100 feet away from Walmart. The site is not gated. The fire district usually does not like gated subdivisions, and so it took a while for them to review the fire plan, and the perimeter to the north is actually wetlands, and they have like I don't know how many feet, but it's like 30 to 50 feet separation between the wetlands. South is actually directly to Lemos Point, so people can actually walk into Lemos Point. Yeah. And then to the east will be the brand new extended Marcus Road, and the alleyway homes actually can walk onto Marcus Road. As to security, I don't think there's a problem with the railroad, but I think you can speak some more.
No, and as Terry mentioned, there's a grade, and each home will have its own fencing, and there's obviously the basin, which will be another buffer. So it's definitely a protected neighborhood in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
So I went there. My daughter lives in the alleyway homes in Martinez, and it was really tight quarters. And I have a friend who lives in Pleasant Hill who lives in an alleyway home, and I never get to park when I go there. So I wanted to see for myself what Lot 7 looked like, and it's pretty spacious. I was pleasantly surprised to see how you guys laid it out. Can you go back to slide 23, please?
Sure.
So other than where am I going to park when I visit, my other question is, can we go from alley E to alley F, or is that closed?
There's going to be a sidewalk.
So you can't drive through it?
Correct. And the sidewalk comes all the way down Street A. So all the way down the side, you can see there. So
Got it.
You can walk.
Okay. And then where am I going to park again when I visit?
You can park on the street or on Marcus Road.
Outside.
Yeah.
And then these little, through the alleys, it's not a driveway, right? It's direct to the garage door?
No, there's a 5-foot. The driveway isn't on. The garage door is, I think, 4 or 5 foot setback from the alley.
Okay, so that.
So it's not.
Not enough to park another car
Yeah,
when
you
I
can
come
turn.
to visit?
It's enough to turn.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for condition 42. Who will maintain these private improvements in a timely manner?
There's going to be a homeowners association.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing about the alley's entrance in and out. It looks like there's just, you go all the way down and in and all the way out, but you can't get out. You cannot access A Street from either alley unless you go around through B or C. Is that what I'm seeing there? So in order to get to, you have to go down C Street and enter in the alleyway and then access, but there's no access directly from alley F to A Street or alley E to A Street?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And that, it really enhances the walkability of the neighborhood, makes it pedestrian forward rather than car centric.
I just wanted to add one last thing, is that alleyway homes were contemplated in the Watson Ranch specific plans, and that's why there's guidelines on how to design it, and these folks have complied with most of the guidelines. Yeah.
All right, Commissioners, thank you for your questions, and thank you, staff and applicants. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public for public comment.
Is there anyone in council chambers who would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone in room 104 downstairs that would like to speak on this item? Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this item? There's no public comment.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public comment. Circling back to the Planning Commission, any closing comments from the Planning Commissioners before we entertain a motion?
One of the question I forgot to ask about condition 20, are there any fees or costs associated with public right of the way to the city, financial costs that will need to be paid as a part of the process of transferring these type of property rights to the city?
So I think the question is about how dedications of right-of-way works with city. So I would defer that to our Public Works Director. But to start, the dedications start with an improvement plan, and improvement plans require initial deposits in which all time and material costs is reimbursed to the city. But
I'm not used to facing the audience, but Eric Almond-Smithies, Public Works Director, Chair, Commission. Can you repeat the question? What else that he did not repeat that you'd like me to answer for you?
For condition 20, are there any fees or costs associated with public right of the way and to the city, financial costs that will be need to bear it as a part of the process of transferring these types of properties rights to the city?
No, it's part of the project. So that's part of their condition is to dedicate the right of way to the city as part of their improvements. And then as you're asking the question about repairs after it's dedicated,
yeah,
that comes from the ratepayers. So in essence, when you're filling those houses, you're now getting new taxpayers to the city's municipal utility system. As far as roadway repairs, is it private? I can't remember if it's right off the top of my head. Is it private roads? Okay. Then we have our local taxes for roads, but you're not going to have to repair those. If they're designed correctly and built correctly, they should not have to be any maintenance for the next 15 to 20, 30 years. Maybe some slurry seals. But as far as utilities, they're paying customers as soon as those residents come on board and connect to our city facilities, utilities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, a lot of great questions. Thank you. Okay. I believe those are all the questions from the Planning Commission, unless we have any more.
Yeah, I just, before we want to try to make a motion here, there was a comment to be made about potentially adding a recommendation to take a second look and a close look. William, can you step up and remind again, please? Thank you.
yes, so the first request is to recommend modifications to the conditions of approval as recommended by staff. And the second is to recommend allowing staff to take a second look at the mitigation measures to see if they're met. I do want to say that the mitigation measures are not going to be altered. We're just going to see if they met those conditions. Yeah. So, yeah, those two.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Who would like to take a stab at a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion. I make a motion to adopt a resolution recommending the city Council of the City of American Canyon approve a vesting tentative subdivision map for Watson Ranch Lot 7 to create 136 single-family homes, lots on 12.86 acres within the Watson Ranch specific plan, medium-density residential 16 zoning district located west of Marcus Road, assessors parcel number 059-430-045, file number PL 240012. And adopt a resolution approving the design permit for Watson Ranch. Separate ones? Okay.
And I assume this motion would include the
To take a second look at.
revision to include the revised Exhibit A that's placed before you, that it contains those further recommendations from staff. We've reviewed those. They are consistent with the site plan improvement, the original vesting tentative map conditions. They seek to clarify. There's nothing substantive in Exhibit A that is inconsistent with the resolution itself. We'd approve them as to form.
And what he said. You're so awesome, Bill.
I second.
Roll call on that first amendment, or first motion.
Yes, Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari.
Aye.
Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, planning commissioners. I'd like to seek an entertainment for another motion, number 2.
I recommend that we adopt a resolution approving design permit for Watson Ranch Lot 7 to create 136 single-family homes on 12.86 acres with the Watson Ranch specific plan, medium-density residential, 16 zoning district located west of Marcus Road, assessors parcel number 059-430-045, file number PL 24-0013.
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari.
Aye.
Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, planning commissioners. You are welcome. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next item. We have the SDG 220 warehouse EIR and CUP. Staff.
All right. Good evening again. William Heave with the Planning Division. This time I'm going to do a short introduction and I will have the applicants give a nice presentation on this project. Just to double check, Nicole, is the EIR consultant Jana on the line too?
Hold on, just one second. I do not. Yes, she is. I will promote her over to panelist. Hold on, just one second. Yeah,
So
she-
the SDG 220 Distribution Center is the, I guess it's the middle piece and last piece of the SDG Commerce Series. Oh, thank you. And this project is a 220,000 square foot wine warehouse distribution center in the recreation and open space zone near 1055 Commerce Court. So with that being said, I'll let the ICC team come and speak.
Thank you, William. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Neil Thompson, and if I figure out which button to press here.
Right button.
Just the right button.
Yeah.
Not the wrong button, but just the right button. All right, thank you. And I represent Stravinsky Development Group, and in this project in particular, the SDG Commerce 220. I'm accompanied by John Wotus, who made the presentation a couple of months ago at the public workshop in front of the commission, and Janet Woligorsky, who represents the consulting firm that prepared the EIR. I'm going to speak specifically to the conditional use permit, and she'll come on after I'm complete and talk about the EIR. As some of you may know, I've been here before. This is our 12th building project in American Canyon, dating back to our first project, Mozetta Foods, in 1995. So that's some 30 years ago. Since then, we've constructed over 2.5 million square feet of refrigerated food-grade facilities in the Green Island Industrial District, in addition to the stuff we've constructed in southern Napa County. These buildings are home to wineries such as Hess Collection and Mumm Champagne, chocolate processor Barry Callebaut, wine bottling operations by Infinity Bottling, direct-to-consumer wine distributors like Wine Direct, Vinfilament, and Last Bottle Wines, value-added operations such as Vinpac and G3 Enterprises, specialized operations for Harlan Wines and Boisset Collection, and secure and protected long-term storage for over 1,000 West Coast wineries by Valley Wine Warehouse, Western Wine, and others. Because we continue to own more than 60% of what we have constructed, we are intimately involved in the market. What the market forces are that would lead us to the development of one type of project versus another. And since we own and operate some of our major tenants, we are fully aware of and deal with such everyday issues as workforce availability, housing, traffic congestion, commute times, etc. So with a 30-year track record in American Canyon, we've learned what works for the market as well as what works for the city and its residents. We are not speculative developers. We don't build a building unless we know we have a tenant for the building. So we're not just putting up empty space. As a matter of fact, all the buildings that we do own right now are 100% occupied. This project is no different than those that we've presented and constructed in the past. It's a refrigerated food-grade facility suitable for the same market that we found to be in demand in the past. This site is an infill lot sandwiched between two existing buildings of similar size and characteristics. The construction of the road, Commerce Court extension to the south, and the parcelization of the 3 lots and the development of the 2 adjacent buildings have all undergone the same full environmental procedural approvals of the Planning Commission and City Council. Why then, you might ask, is this project going through this CEQA EIR hearing process? It's a reasonable question. Although this project is in all respects very similar to all of our projects that have come before you in the past 30 years, some of the applicable review regulations that are imposed by the state of California have continued to change. In this instance, the state has recently changed how employee traffic impacts are to be calculated. I say employee because we're not talking about truck traffic, just employee traffic. In our latest 2 projects, we were able to mitigate the VMT, vehicle miles traveled, those impacts by constructing a bike path that connected, that provided connection for non-vehicular travel from Vallejo through Green Island Industrial Park, north, all the way to the city of Napa. Okay. And beyond. With the new state review criteria, nothing short of a public transportation system within the Green Island Industrial District will satisfy that criteria. And we just heard a couple of presentations ago regarding the update for the general plan, that even the city's general plan consultant said that the VMT in the general plan will not meet the state requirements even after it's been implemented. So So again, neither our proposed development, which is the building and the uses, et cetera, that would be inside the building, nor the site has changed whatsoever from the other projects that we've done. The only thing that's changed is the review process by the state. So it might be useful to have some historical perspective regarding the area of the site, commonly known as the Grove. It was initially planted with non-native industrial, Australian eucalyptus trees probably a century or more ago by someone hoping to market them for lumber. We see that all over California. So this is not new here. Unfortunately, eucalyptus wood is difficult to mill into lumber. And if you've ever tried to saw it, good luck. And the oils in the trees inhibit the growth of most, if not all, plant material under them, thus destroying any native plant material that might have been there before they were planted. Because once they're there for a long time, there's nothing left. In order to remediate hazardous waste from being released into the ground, back in 2012, the Superior Court of Napa County ordered that a portion of the grove be removed and cleaned up, and this was undertaken by a previous owner. 7 years later, in 2019, we purchased the property as a single 36-acre parcel and embarked on an environmental review of the full 36 acres for the development of one building and the extension of Commerce Court down to access it. 2 years later, after going through a parcel map process, we went through another environmental review process for the Commerce 217 at the north end of the 35 acres. And that project has just been completed and approved. Again, the environmental review and permitting process included not only the lot for the 217, but also the partial grading for the remaining lot between the 217 and the 330. In each construction project, the 330 and the 217, mitigation measures were required and were followed for such environmental issues such as nesting bird surveys, frog surveys, et cetera. This project will have the same conditions of approval and mitigation measures imposed on it. The next set of slides, which are all, this information is all contained in the staff report and the application, so I'm going to go rather quickly through it, talking about the size of the parcel, 10 acres, it's undeveloped, it's an infill lot, et cetera. This is a view of the northern property line of this project in the new 217 that's just to the right. And this is a southerly shot of that same parcel. The site plan. The loading docks are facing south. The elevation of the building conceptually, which will be very similar to the two existing buildings. And some highlights as to how they're constructed and designed and the hours of operation, all of which is identical to the existing buildings that are there. So now I have a little video, which I need to start. Do you know how to start a video? That'd be right. Oh, different button. There it is. Thank you. Some of you have seen this video before. We prepared it for the first project in the Grove, the Commerce 330. This is a bird's eye view along the North Slough, where 7 of our buildings are along the south side of the slough. Left-hand side as we watch them. These projects challenged us to be better, maintain each facility. Environmental sensitivity, not only of this project site, but all of the North Slough. And Napa River to Highway 29 and beyond. Over the past 20 years, we have worked with the city, the state Department of Fish and Wildlife, State Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Army Corps of Engineers in the development and construction of 7 refrigerated wine storage warehouses, all similar to this project we're talking about tonight, that are directly adjacent to the North Slough. Working with our consulting biologists in the city, we have enhanced the ecological resources along over 8,600 lineal feet of North Slough and preserved over 37 acres of wetlands and riparian habitat in perpetuity. That means a long, long time. For the benefit of the wildlife, the city, and the residents of the city. Along with creating additional wetlands and uplands, we've planted cover trees along the banks of the slough for smaller birds as they work their way up and down the slough. They are not exposed to marauding raptors from above. In addition, each of the bridges that we have constructed over the North Slough free span over the slough without impacting the bed and bank of the slough. That wildlife can freely move up and down without having to cross any of the roads above. It's a real treat to watch the ducks and geese on the wetland ponds, especially the deer and other wildlife that come out at about 5:30. Right now, you're seeing just site of the project for tonight, the Commerce 220 and the Grove. From the city standpoint, this is the best kind of wildlife preserve that it can hope to have. It can be enjoyed like a park. It has no maintenance costs, and yet it still pays full property taxes. What could be a better proposition for the residents? We enhance the wetlands that we inherit and don't treat them as afterthoughts. There is a small, mostly linear seasonal wetland that is fed by water flowing from the land to the east of this on this project. We will not interrupt this water flow nor impede its outflow. Significant buffers around the wetland will be wildlife-friendly fenced and maintained as mandated by law and good science. Wildlife nibbling on our landscaping is always an issue. There are many deer, turkeys, cats, big and small, along the slough, and new plant material is always like candy for them. Selection of plants that are one on the city's approved plant list, material list, and 2 that can withstand the pressure from the animal population is an important function to recognize. With a warming climate, it can take a year to get good roots in the ground, so good maintenance is necessary. That is why we get a 1-year warranty in all plant material at initial installation. As in the past, our project consulting biologists will conduct nesting surveys in accordance with the prescribed mitigation measures, regulatory protocols prior to any work on the project site. As for any work on the site, no work will be instituted until all planning and building permits have been issued by the city. At this point, any surveying work on the site is for design purposes only. At this point, I'd like to turn the podium over to Jana Woligorsky with First Carbon to continue with the presentation of the project and our discussion regarding the in-depth review process commonly referred to as CEQA.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Let's see.
We can put the slide back up. I'll start on slide 13. Again, my name is Jana Woligorsky. I'm with First Carbon Solutions. I'm sorry I can't be there in person tonight. And I'm here just to talk about the EIR we have prepared for this project. You can go back 1 slide there. So just a quick overview on what the environmental review is. It's the same CEQA process that your general plan is currently going through. We're just currently a little further along the process. So CEQA applies to any project that requires a discretionary approval from state or local agencies. In the case of this project, it requires a conditional use permit on site. The City of American Canyon is the lead agency for the proposed project, and they are overseeing the preparation of the EIR. The EIR is the highest level of CEQA review. It provides impartial information that identifies the potential impacts of the project and recommended mitigation measures to reduce those impacts. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the general environmental process and where we stand now. We started back in October of 2023, where we issued a notice of preparation. We went through a scoping period where we accepted comments on what we should address in the EIR. We then went through the environmental analysis period and incorporated those scoping period comments and published a draft EIR on June 11th of 2024. We then had a public comment period that lasted for 52 days when the public had an additional opportunity to submit comments, this time on the analysis that we prepared in the draft EIR. We have now provided responses to all of those written comments in a final EIR, and together the draft EIR and the final EIR together are considered the EIR for the project. And that leads us to where we are today. We are at this Planning Commission meeting where we are recommending to the Planning Commission that they recommend to the City Council that the project be approved and the EIR be certified. So that is the next step in the process. Next slide. I've summarized this for you in our public hearing meeting previously, but I'll summarize here again our key draft EIR conclusions. Overall, we concluded there's less than significant air quality impacts with the implementation of mitigation. There are less than significant GHG impacts. There will be less than significant biological impacts with implementation of mitigation. That's primarily for the protection of species, special status species. The project is consistent with the general plan and the zoning ordinance applicable to the site. Under transportation, it does exceed city VMT trip thresholds, and that is a significant and unavoidable impact after the implementation of mitigation. As was previously mentioned, this is similar to the two adjacent developments, and those did not require EIRs. They were passed through CEQA under an ISM&D because they did not have the significant unavoidable impact. What has changed is the regulation. And as also previously mentioned, as shown in your general plan EIR, draft EIR, that too has a significant unavoidable impact related to VMT trip thresholds. So overall, decision makers would be required to adopt a statement of overriding considerations for this project. And that initially indicates that, yes, there are the significant unavoidable impacts. However, the benefits of the project outweigh them. Next slide, please. So in here is a quick summary of our final EIR. Again, we had the draft EIR, we've received comments on it, and then our final EIR contains all of our written responses to those comments. We received comments from 2 state agencies, 2 organizations, and 3 individuals, and we responded to all those comments, and you can provide the final EIR for your review of those. The final EIR also includes an errata, and that lists corrections that were made to the draft EIR as a result of those comments or as needed. The errata for this final EIR contains only 3 areas of edits, and those were made to provide clarification or fix typographical errors. None of the comment letters raised issues that needed to be reanalyzed or any conclusions changed, and we did not need to recirculate the EIR. There's also a single appendix to the final EIR, and it provides additional supports for our biological analysis and our answers to biological comments on the draft EIR. Next slide. So the next step, as I've already mentioned, is going to City Council, where they will consider the certification of the EIR and project approval. We were provided 3 additional comment letters prior to this meeting on this, and I just have a quick summary of each of those. The first expressed support for the issues raised in the previously submitted comment letters from Napa Solano residents for responsible development and the comment letter submitted by CDFW. This comment letter did not raise any issues not addressed in the draft or final EIR, nor did it provide specific evidence indicating that analysis or conclusions should be revised. A second comment letter stated that the draft EIR was inadequate and generally cited several topics. Each of those topics was referenced and addressed and analyzed in the draft and final EIR in accordance with applicable regulations, including CEQA. The third comment letter expressed a couple different things, but one thing they expressed concern about was regarding impacts to the wetland area on site. And I just wanted to give a little background on that. The wetland area is highly disturbed. It consists of marginal habitat. It contains a rural weedy vegetation of both native and non-native species. It does not support any special status vegetation or habitat. As previously indicated by Neil, its source of water comes from lands to the east. This will not change as a result of the project. The project will be required to comply with Section 404 and 401 of the Clean Water Act as applicable, ensuring no wetland fill or disturbance will occur. Furthermore, implementation of the project's stormwater pollution prevention plan would further protect the wetlands water quality. Finally, it should be noted that CDFW reviewed the draft AR, and while they had comments on species, they did not have any comments related to protection of the wetland. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the Planning Commission. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Just 1 second. So a few last things for the presentation. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Neil. Just 2 more slides. One is about our public outreach. I'm not going to include all of the public outreach efforts that this team did, but I'll go back to since the last workshop in July, and which is on October 9th, we've posted the final EIR, which are the response to comments, on the website, as well as provided printed copies in City Hall, the American Canyon Library, and the Active Adult Center. And then we did our public noticing to the residents and owners, and then we did publish in the newspaper as well. Throughout this period from October 9th to yesterday, we received those 3 comments, and those 3 comments were responded to just earlier by Jana. And lastly, staff's recommendation is to adopt the resolution for recommending City Council certify the final EIR and the mitigation measures reporting program. And then secondly, adopt a resolution recommending the City Council to approve the conditional use permit as well. Okay, with that, do you have any questions?
All right, great. Thank you, William, and applicant. This time I'll open up questions to the Planning Commission. What are your questions? Commissioner Malari, no questions?
I don't think I've, maybe not more of a question, but just a comment. So I know that we received the 3 comments this past day and a half or so, but some of them stood out to me, where I just want to make sure that we are responding respectively and also responsibly. There was one, I think, with identifying just the presence of the species, the number of species. So I'm not familiar on how long a study or thing would take, but from the comment, there was 114 potentially special species inhibiting there, but it was only identified of 28 in the report.
I think I'm going to defer that one to Jana about.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, the site is actually has been very highly studied as biologically, and while there are certainly many special status species in the area, the special status species that are identified as being on site, we go through a process of filtering those down by if there's habitat on site for them. So while there may be many more special status species in the area, if there's no habitat on site for that special status species, it's not necessarily considered to occur on site or even have the potential to occur on site.
Okay, thank you. And then I recall the video that was shown. How many years ago was that video shot? Because that was.
I don't have information on that. I think that Neil would have to fill you in on that.
Yeah, he's coming up.
Yeah, I believe it was shot just for the Commerce 330, which I believe was approved somewhere around 2018, 19,
so
somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's probably when I first started as a planning commissioner around that time, roughly. So I'm pretty sure it all has changed, so I probably recommend to get a new video if we want to get more projects approved on this end. That's all I got.
Commissioner Goff.
I guess, William, my question is, we've done the other 3 warehouses that are on that lot, or in that part when it was parceled out. And we've been through the EIRs on all of them. And my understanding is, from what I heard today, is the reason a new EIR was needed was because of the changes in the state's requirements, specifically around the vehicle miles traveled. Is that?
I think that's
That's correct.
Yeah, Jana.
Okay. Thank you. That's really just clarification I needed. Thank you.
Youth Commissioner Jawanda, any questions? No. Vice Chair Mohammed. Great. Okay, I have no questions. At this time, I'd like to open it up to public comment.
Okay, we have Yvonne Baginski.
Thank you. My name's Yvonne Baginski. I'm a resident of Napa County. I'm not a wildlife biologist. I went through a certification project to be a naturalist for the state of California. I've worked with elder care. I belong to the Sierra Club. I walk the hills. I hike. I spend a lot of time in nature, and I buy stuffed eagles. When I spoke last time on this matter, I said, could we please work some sort of compromise? Can we please talk about planting native plants, putting up bat roosts? Can we do something to compensate for some of the devastation that these warehouses are doing? And then I saw 240 pages of comments made by other folks who are in opposition, including CDFW, including the wildlife biologists, including people who are specialists in this area. I couldn't recognize one hawk from another, but I trust the people that wrote these things up. Of course, Dr. Smallwood did have about 20 pages of his CV in here, so we have to take that out. My point is, in doing my research, in doing my investigation, in doing my homework, I went out there, I walked the property. I went out there, I looked to see what was going on, and I talked to people. And what I discovered is that all of this foraging habitat that's being taken up on the Swanson hawk, the city of American Canyon isn't mitigating any credits for it. They aren't doing anything to encourage these developments to pay for this destruction of this property. I did call the Napa Valley Transportation Authority, because when they built that roundabout at Napa Junction, they had to pay $175,000 for a nesting tree and $433,000 for 17 acres of foraging habitat. That's just for the roundabout. The SDG Enterprises have done 12 warehouses in American Canyon. How much foraging habitat has been destroyed of all kinds of birds, and has there been any mitigation for that? I also want to say that I feel, after reading this FEIR 3 times, I think it's inadequate as well. It insults my intelligence, because I know the wildlife of this area, and there is so much of this that's been omitted. I also want you to know that American Canyon is very dear to my heart, and that's why I keep showing up for these meetings. I have nothing to gain by being here, absolutely nothing. But I do hope that the rest of you will consider turning this down for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Okay, next we have Jeanette G. I'm not going to butcher your last name. I apologize, Jeanette. Jeanette, are you here? I have a speaker card. Are you still in council chambers? I'm sorry, Jeanette? No? Okay. If Jeanette shows up, then I will come back to her. So then I have Robert Valdez.
Good evening, Planning Commission, staff, and public. My name is Roberto Valdez. I'm a longtime resident from Solano County, your neighbor county, Vacaville to be exact. But I want to tell you a little bit more about me, so you know where I'm coming from. And I think you give 3 minutes. It's kind of my first time here, so pardon me if I got a little. I'm discovering that process. But anyway, I'm as I said, a long-time stakeholder with the proposed habitat conservation plan of Solano County. That's under the lead agency of Solano County Water Agency, the multi-species plan. It's proposed since 1998. So I know a lot about that, and that's why I'm here. One of the reasons. But the other thing is that I'm also the current chair for the conservation activity in Solano County with the Napa Solano Audubon Society. And I want to speak on 3 items briefly. Number 1, what you stand to lose of the species and the habitat if you approve this project. Number 2, what you will gain from this if you hold back. In regards to I'm not sure you're aware, I'm hearing and there's a proposed natural conservation, a community conservation plan being formulated in Napa, and I'm excited about that. And that's because I value the connection that a lot of this proposed habitat conservation plans have in regards to the Northern California conservation partners. And there are a lot of plans throughout the state, north and south, but Solano County is one of the lead agencies. And, you know, there's more to it. So I recommend you all get used to that, or get educated, so that you know what's involved. Again, there's a lot of benefits, but that you can kind of work out between conservation and development, you know. Anyway, if I can have 1 minute more. Okay. Anyway, the habitat there, you already have, it's been verified, you have Swainson's hawks and white-tailed kites, but you can also, potentially will have boring owls, northern areas, western prong. Those are all species that are involved with our proposed habitat. So again, if you hold back, we can make the connection, we can save the wildlife, and you can still have your development, okay? In a more constructive.
Please wrap up.
Manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto.
Okay. Is there any comment from room 104 downstairs? Any comment from people on Zoom? Okay, I'm going to circle back to Jeanette.
I do have a comment. Pardon me.
I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand raised. I apologize.
I'm sorry. I had it raised before. My name is Alicia Mijares. I'm a business representative for the Sheet Metal Workers Local 104. Good evening, Planning Commission. Thank you for your time. I wanted to ask, because I get the feeling you're going to ask or recommend approval of this project. I would like to ask that you include community benefits language in your recommendation to the City Council for this specific project and for the general plan. Other cities around the Bay Area have adopted community benefits language in their general plans, their specific plans, their ordinances, and other policies. And I just wanted to read a couple of excerpts from, for instance, the Berkeley downtown area plan, where they say that buildings with more than 100 units of housing or office buildings above 75 feet will pay prevailing wages for construction workers and employ approximately 16% of employees who are as apprentices from state certified local apprenticeships. In the Livermore Isabel neighborhood specific plan, their language includes local hire, paying area standard wages, and employing youth and at-risk workers who are enrolled in state of California approved joint labor management apprenticeship programs. And the City of San Jose Diridon Station area plan includes language that says the city has determined that the prevailing wage requirements benefit the community through the superior efficiency of well-paid employees, and that these requirements increase competition by promoting a more level playing field among contractors with regard to the wages paid for workers. Now, I wanted to give a specific example of a project that's gone wrong because there are no standards and maybe for many other reasons. But there is a hotel being built on Broadway that I visited with a colleague about a year and a half ago, and the project was well underway. My colleague has since retired, and this project still isn't finished. That hotel should have been maybe a 6 or an 8 month project at best. What I did notice on that and other subsequent visits to that
30
job
seconds.
site is that, excuse me?
30 seconds. Please wrap up.
Thank you. There are 2 RVs on that site with Florida license plates. So you have people coming from out of state, not paying rent anywhere, not getting a hotel anywhere, making a mess and a debacle of this project. And you can avoid this on future private projects by getting some of this language into specific plans and to the general plan. And I hope that you'll recommend that to the city council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louisa.
Okay, I'm going to circle back one more time to Jeanette. If you're in the room, okay. I'm seeing people say no, she's not here. Are there any additional public comments on Zoom or in room 104? There are no additional public comments.
Thank you, Nicole. At this time, I close public comment. Commissioners, do you need deliberation time or? First of all, I want to thank everyone for the comments, especially Yvonne and everyone that came, Roberto, Luisa, and of course, whoever spoke on this matter. And thank you for coming out and caring so much about American Canyon. We do appreciate you giving your words and comments. And of course, to the bill that's been here for a very long time and your consideration as well. With that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion if the Planning Commission is ready to do so.
Chair, I'll make a motion for a recommendation that we adopt a resolution recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon certify the final environmental impact report, SCH number 2023100842, and adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the SDG Commercial 220 Distribution Center project located at 1055 Commerce Court, APN 058-030-069, file number PL23-0017. And do we have to do second resolutions? We have to do 2 separate? Okay, thank you.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari.
Nay.
Okay. Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
And Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the entertainment of the second motion.
Chair, I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution recommending the City Council of the City of American Canyon approve the SDG Commerce 220 Distribution Center conditional use permit for development of a 219,834 square foot wine warehouse on a 10.45 acre site located at 1055 Commerce Court, APN 058-030-069, file number PL 23-0017.
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Eric Altman is absent. Commissioner Andrew Goff.
Aye.
Commissioner Crystal Malari. Vice Chair Devet Mohammed.
Aye.
Chair Brando Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, Planning Commissioners. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to management and staff oral reports. I believe we still have Director Cooper here online. Director Cooper.
Actually, tonight, Senior Planner William He is going to present on the active planning projects.
Thank you, William He.
All right. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to try to hit the highlights. It's so we have a resubmittal for the Crown Hill Minor Mod project. This is a 7,500 square foot a prefabricated warehouse at the Crown Hill stone selling store, which is at 650 Green Island Road. This is a minor mod. This is in addition to the primary store. We just got the application about a week ago. The Crawford Way Apartments, it's been a while since we've talked to them. Their recent resubmittal was really strong. We hope to give them comments back next week and then see if we can bring it to the Planning Commission in December. So these are the Crawford apartments on Crawford and Highway 29. Let's see. Of course, the Oat Hill Apartments, the major mod was approved about 2 weeks ago, and they are starting to resubmit their construction documents that reflects the major mod approval. And hopefully we get those reviewed and approved, and they can start building it to the specs that they confirmed. Watson Ranch Lot 7 was reviewed and approved today. Let's see. And then a lot of these are for public works. They're working with finalizing the improvement plans to the Hampton Inn Hotel. That's the fifth hotel after the Home2 Suites. Those are on their second round of building permits. There's just some kinks to work out, and hopefully they resubmit for their third time, probably later this year. And a bit of an update for the Harvest subdivision. I think we've completed the Artisan subdivision maybe earlier this year. The Harvest subdivision's for 219 homes, and I think they've got like 90 of those done. So about a little bit more than a third. So they're getting close. They're moving really quick, and then the Copart car storage business on 1660 Green Island Road. They're like 95% percent complete. They've received their temporary certificate of occupancy. With the only last thing remaining is to just finish up some of the landscaping that needs to be done. So we gave them a TCO so they can start training their employees and getting some stock in, but they will just need to complete the landscaping and then they're done. So that one took a while, but they're almost there. And then there's construction for the Chicken Guy restaurant. They hope to finish by the end of the year. And that's about it for my update.
Thank you, William. I do have one question for number one, the Canyon Cafe food truck design permit. What's the status on that?
So we gave them comments back just on October 4th. So this is a food truck that wanted to be adjacent to the Canyon Cafe. But I think the comments were more of clarification, and we're just waiting for them to resubmit. Yeah. So it was just 2 weeks ago from our side, so it's up to them.
And number 21, the Canyon Estates Court. Is somebody actually going to build a house there or looking to build a house there? I'm looking.
Canyon Estates. So the Canyon Estates actually, I think there's one building permit that's active. So they have submitted like their second round, and we're waiting for them to submit the third round. It's a beautiful, I think, 6-bedroom house with an ADU, and then the owners are actually talking with a separate group to modify some floor plans that would do. I think it's different from the custom homes, but they're in talks with a bigger company that will work with them. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you for that, William. Appreciate that. All right, last item here. Looks like we have commissioners' items. Commissioners, do you have anything for the good of the order?
I just have one, maybe as far as for future planning, I'd like to discuss potentially moving the December Planning Commission meeting up so I can attend.
We will look at our calendar. There are other commission meetings that conflict with the date you had originally proposed. So we'll look at the calendar and I will talk to Director Cooper.
Thank you.
Any other items? No? Well, I'd like to, again, welcome Youth Commissioner Jawanda. Great questions. Keep it up. We welcome you wholeheartedly with open arms. And thank you, everyone, for your patience and going through this whole meeting. It is 9:24, meeting adjourned.